Today I will share sci-fi drama and romance film from 2016. Watch out the spoilers ahead. The movie begins with a view of the starship Avalon on a voyage through deep space. The sleek, futuristic ship, designed with elegance and efficiency, is traveling from Earth to a distant colony world called Homestead 2. This journey spans 120 years, and the Avalon carries over 5,000 passengers and 258 crew members, all of whom are in a state of induced hibernation or stasis to survive the lengthy trip. The ship is largely automated, run by artificial intelligence and automated maintenance systems. However, as the ship passes through a dense meteor field, a collision occurs, damaging the ship's outer hull and triggering a chain reaction of technical malfunctions. The ship systems struggle to repair themselves, but amidst the chaos, one of the hibernation pods unexpectedly malfunctions. This pod belongs to Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer. Jim wakes up groggy and disoriented, initially believing that he, along with everyone else, has reached their destination. He gets dressed and proceeds to the main areas of the ship, only to find them completely deserted. Confused, he attempts to access the ship systems, where he learns the devastating truth. He's woken up 90 years too early. Homestead 2 is still a lifetime away, and all the other passengers and crew remain in deep sleep. Jim tries every possible option to go back to sleep, but the ship systems are either beyond his control or designed to prevent such actions. He visits the crew quarters but finds them inaccessible without proper authorization. As the reality of his isolation sets in, Jim begins to panic. The only other semblance of life on the ship is a robotic bartender named Arthur, who provides him with drinks and conversation, though limited in emotional depth. Months pass, and Jim's situation becomes increasingly bleak. He scavenges the ship, trying to find a way to fix his pod or contact Earth for help, but with no success. The ship's systems are advanced, but rigidly designed to run autonomously, and any significant deviations from its pre-programmed course are nearly impossible. Jim starts to lose hope. His physical appearance begins to deteriorate as his beard grows long, and he becomes visibly tired from the constant isolation. In his loneliness, Jim starts to use the various entertainment systems aboard the Avalon, but nothing can fill the void left by human interaction. He becomes despondent, even considering suicide at one point when he contemplates ejecting himself into space. However, in the midst of his despair, he comes across the sleeping form of Aurora Lane, a beautiful writer from New York. Her hibernation pod captures his attention. Intrigued by Aurora, Jim begins to research her. He watches her video logs, reads her profile, and learns that she is a celebrated writer who planned to write about her journey to Homestead 2. As time passes, Jim becomes increasingly infatuated with her. His loneliness, coupled with his growing obsession with Aurora, leads him to a critical and morally challenging decision. He could wake her up. Jim battles with the ethics of this choice. He knows that waking her would doom her to the same fate he faces, a life of isolation on the Avalon, never reaching Homestead 2. But his loneliness and desire for companionship become overwhelming, and eventually, Jim overrides his conscience. He tampers with Aurora's pod, waking her up under the guise of a malfunction. Aurora awakens in much the same way Jim did, confused and disoriented. Initially, she assumes that she, like Jim, has woken up due to some technical error. Jim hides the truth, pretending to be as bewildered as she is about their predicament. Aurora, devastated by the realization that she will never reach Homestead 2, experiences the same feelings of panic and despair Jim had. The two try together to find a way to fix the situation, but soon realize that it is impossible to go back into stasis. As days turn into weeks, Aurora begins to accept her situation, just as Jim had before her. She finds solace in her writing, chronicling her experiences on board the Avalon. Slowly but surely, she starts to open up to Jim, and the two grow closer. Jim, who has been struggling with the guilt of his actions, keeps the secret of how she really woke up. Over the next few months, Jim and Aurora's bond strengthens. Their relationship evolves from reluctant allies to close friends, and eventually to lovers. They enjoy the luxuries of the ship together, from its grand dining rooms to its entertainment systems and swimming pools. In each other's company, they find a sense of normalcy and happiness, despite the dire circumstances of their isolation. They begin to fantasize about creating a life together aboard the Avalon, since it is all they have. Aurora shares her dreams with Jim, particularly her ambitions of writing about her journey and reaching Homestead 2, which was supposed to be the subject of her next great novel. Jim, tormented by guilt, keeps quiet about the fact that he deliberately woke her, fearing that revealing the truth would destroy their relationship. The turning point in the story comes when Arthur, the robotic bartender, lets slip a critical piece of information during a casual conversation with Aurora. Unknowingly, he mentions that Jim was responsible for waking her up. Horrified, Aurora confronts Jim. The truth is a brutal blow. She feels betrayed, angry, and devastated by the revelation. Jim's choice, in her eyes, has robbed her of her future, forcing her into a life she never chose. The idyllic relationship between Jim and Aurora crumbles. She shuns him, expressing her rage and heartbreak at being condemned to die on the ship without reaching the new world she had hoped for. Aurora isolates herself, avoiding Jim and refusing to interact with him, and Jim is left alone once again, consumed by guilt and regret. As Jim and Aurora's relationship hangs in the balance, the Avalon experiences a series of increasingly severe malfunctions. Electrical systems flicker, environmental controls start failing, and parts of the ship begin to degrade. It soon becomes clear that the damage caused by the meteor collision at the start of the film has caused critical failures in the ship's systems. A new character enters the story at this point. Gus Mancuso, a crew member who is unexpectedly awakened from hibernation due to a malfunction in his pod. Unlike Jim and Aurora, Gus has significant health problems, having suffered severe physical deterioration due to improper awakening. Gus quickly assesses the situation and realizes the gravity of the ship's condition. With his access to critical parts of the ship, Gus discovers that the reactor powering the Avalon is on the verge of a catastrophic failure. The trio must work together to fix the ship and save the lives of the 5,000 passengers still in stasis. Gus's health continues to deteriorate, and after giving Jim and Aurora his authorization card, granting them access to the ship's restricted areas, he passes away. Jim and Aurora are left to complete the mission on their own. They discover that a critical component of the ship's reactor is overheating, and if it's not vented, the entire ship will be destroyed. Jim devises a dangerous plan to vent the reactor manually by going outside the ship. Aurora, still hurt by his betrayal, reluctantly agrees to help him, knowing that their survival depends on it. Jim suits up and heads outside, braving the harsh vacuum of space to reach the malfunctioning vent. The task is perilous, and Jim faces multiple challenges, from extreme heat to the risk of floating off into space. In a nail-biting sequence, Jim manages to open the vent, but the force of the release sends him hurtling into space. Aurora, inside the ship, watches in horror as Jim's tether snaps, and he begins drifting away, unconscious from lack of oxygen. Refusing to let him die, Aurora takes matters into her own hands and heroically retrieves him. She brings Jim back to the ship and manages to revive him using the ship's medical equipment. This moment of life-or-death sacrifice brings Jim and Aurora back together. Having faced death, Aurora begins to forgive Jim, recognizing the depth of his remorse and understanding the impossible situation he was in when he woke her. Their relationship, though built on a painful lie, is salvaged as they come to terms with their fate. After stabilizing the ship and saving everyone on board, Jim makes a discovery that offers Aurora a chance at the life she had always wanted. The medical pod on the Avalon has the capability to put a person back into hibernation. Jim offers the pod to Aurora, allowing her to return to sleep and live out her dream of reaching Homestead 2. Aurora, however, faces an emotional dilemma. While she longed to see the new world and write her story, her experiences with Jim have changed her. After much consideration, she decides to stay awake with Jim, choosing love and companionship over a lonely life on Homestead 2. She accepts that they can build a life together aboard the Avalon, even though it won't be the future she had once imagined. The movie ends 88 years later, as the Avalon nears Homestead 2. The crew and passengers are awakened from their stasis and prepare to disembark. As they walk through the ship, they discover that Jim and Aurora transformed the sterile, metallic halls of the Avalon into a thriving, green oasis. Trees, plants, and even a small cabin have been built, evidence of the life Jim and Aurora created together. In a voiceover, Aurora reflects on her decision to stay with Jim and the life they shared. She completed her story, though it was far different from the one she initially intended to write. The ship has reached its destination, but Jim and Aurora have long since passed away, leaving behind a beautiful legacy for those who follow. Make sure to subscribe House of the Recaps and turn on notifications for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.